Welcome, welcome. We're going to be starting in about 30 seconds or so. So come on back if you were standing up and stretching your legs. Welcome. We're so glad you're joining us tonight. Oh my goodness, Susan. 10 p.m. and 40 degrees.
Yep, and I'm sitting here by my dog in front of my little pillow.
Wow, thank you for being here. Well, welcome, welcome. We're so excited that you are here. It is 6:45. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Natasha Rios, and I am an instructional coach in Saddleback Valley Unified School District.
And my name is Jenny Anderson, and I'm an instructional design and technology TOSA. And we are so happy to be here. You made it to the last session. We're so happy. Thanks for hanging with us. So just quickly in our session overview, we're going to focus on reflective learning in math fluency and concept building, and even critical thinking using Seesaw and a little bit of Jamboard. For those of you who may not have access to Seesaw, there's a lot of tools that are similar, and we'll talk about the differences. We're going to share resources for number talks, visual patterns, and how it all connects back to our mathematical practices. So quickly, so you know what's coming, we're going to talk about math mindset and practices. We're going to do a quick Subitizing with Jamboard so you can see how to use that. We're going to share a slide deck at that point. We don't want to do it before because we have some Subitizing that we want you to do with us. Then we'll look at Subitizing specifically with Seesaw and the multimodal features that it offers. And then we have a little choice board. So the last little bit will be kind of diving deeper in what interests you the most and what you can use with your students.
So to get us started, I want you to think of 2 to 3 words that describe a successful math student. So think about a student that you've had before, maybe one of your best math students that you've ever had. Come up with 2 or 3 words. What makes that student a successful math student? Was it something that they did? Is it a way that they were? But go ahead and just think in your mind, what makes a successful math student, or think of some qualities that a successful math student that you've had in the past has had. So what we're going to go ahead and do is 2 things, or actually have 2 choices. Number 1, Jen in the chat is going to be dropping in a link for our Mentimeter. Or 2, we're also used to our QR codes. If you have your cell phone and you want to go ahead and just scan this QR code, and you're going to see that it's asking you for 3 words to describe a successful math learner. I love that we have our maths picture. It always makes me think of Dr. Joe Bowler as we're learning about maths. So think of those 3 words and go ahead and take a moment and just enter 1 word on each line. So what word would you use? What 2 to 3 words would you use to describe a successful math learner?
And if you can't,
go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, if you can't think of 3, just do 1 or 2 and hit submit.
And then once you hit submit, you do not have to do anything else. It might ask you if you'd like to put your email address in. You don't have to. We're going to go ahead and show you the results. Oh, I love these. If you've not used Mentimeter before, this is a great way to hear for all of your student voices here. So notice some of our important words. And if you've not used Mentimeter before, just so you're aware, it's the larger the word means that more people have said that word. So we see that we've got engaged, we have flexible as some of our larger ones, number sense, persistence, perseverance. Oh, I love these.
It's such a good word.
So good. Take another moment if you have not submitted yours yet. They're such great words. And so as we're looking at all of those different words that we can think of that describe our math learners, our best math students that we've had, let's go ahead and think about how those words that we saw, how does that tie in with our mathematical practices? So you're going to see we've got our 8 mathematical practices, and they look a little bit different. And again, like Jen said, you're going to be getting the link for this slide deck, so you'll actually be able to have a copy of these. The great thing about these mathematical practices is that they're put into as student language, so really easy, especially for our kinder, first and second grade students to use. And I want you kind of thinking of this kind of helps us with our grounding. Go ahead and think of this even today with our Subitizing with Seesaw. Think about which one of these math practices can you relate with. Go ahead and think about, maybe is there one thing that maybe you're using already in class, or one thing that maybe you're wanting to be using a little bit more of.
All right, so we're going to jump into Subitizing. Actually, the word Subitizing, it was funny because I was just talking to Natasha last week. She goes, I just learned what this word meant. And we have been kind of looking at it, but it's actually from a Latin root that means suddenly. So if you can see numbers, and they said even before students learn to count, they start learning to subitize. When you hold up 3 and they say that I'm 3, or you start connecting that. So it's like perceptual and then conceptual, how they look at numbers and make sense of numbers. And as you grow in the way that you enumerate and that you put these together, you can see a small amount of objects without counting. So building that number sense is very powerful for students. So when we look at certain tools and certain images that will help us teach Subitizing, it really lends them to math discourse and being able to connect with math concepts. So I want you to get ready and look at the screen, because we're going to show you an image for 5 seconds. So it's a quick picture, and you're going to see if you can count how many donuts there are in this picture. So get ready. You're going to need to look at it because it's going to go away real quick. Here we go. All right. So you have some choices for response. You can unmute in a minute if you want and share what you saw. If you have a piece of paper and you want to write it down and put it up in the camera, if you just want to write it in the chat what you saw, feel free to do any of the 3. We're a nice small session. You, like I said, thank you for hanging in there with us in last session. So if you feel like you want to unmute, please do so. I see 16. I saw an array. A lot of people say 16. Sarah said 8. Thank you for sharing your thinking. There's no wrong answers. That's the beauty about Subitizing. It's all looking at it and seeing how we see math differently. 16 halves. Thank you. I love the way you guys were thinking and sharing. So that's another thing about this. It really lowers the affective filter because there is no right answer. And I love that a lot of this students will get very passionate, especially in 1st and 2nd grade and even in kindergarten. Well, did you mean how many donuts, like how many whole donuts or how many half donuts? Are you looking at specifically one flavor of donuts? Yes. I always say yes, and right? Let them think about it. So some of the things that you were saying, we took this right from 2nd grade, kids looking at these same things. So 2 groups of 4 is 8, and they were looking at the top and the bottom. The next one saw 4 rows, then the 4 quadrants. And then somebody else in here, I forgot, somebody said it was that they saw the array, and you will see the student did that too. They saw that 4 times 4. So they started thinking of numbers flexibly, quickly, and they were able to share what their thinking was as far as what it looked like for them looking at that picture. So when you talk about Subitizing, you can do it in images, you can do it in visual patterns, and you can even do it in which one doesn't belong. We're going to give you examples for all of these today.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the same picture of the donuts. We're going to do one more, but we're going to do this in Jamboard style. So if we look at, and Jen's going to be putting it in a link in the chat in just a second. Jen, will you go to the next slide so we can, there we go. Okay, so in just a moment, we're going to be going to a Jamboard. And as we look at this Jamboard, I want you thinking about, so notice it's the same picture that we saw. However, this time our question is a little bit different. Instead, we're asking 2 questions. 1, how many chocolate donuts are there? And then 2, how did you figure out how many there are? So we're going to be practicing this together in a Jamboard. Now, as Jen's getting ready to put this in, this link in the Jamboard, this link to Jamboard into our chat, I just want to be clear on how you access this. So a couple of things, just in case you're not familiar with Jamboard. Jamboard gives us frames. We're going to see that we have a total of 20 frames. And when you open up the frame, notice where her super cute cursor is, you're going to open up to a different frame. And we want it to be a frame that nobody's on. Jamboard did change their settings. So if you're somebody that's familiar with it, they changed it where it used to be where you could see somebody that's on it and now you can't. So what I'd like you to do instead, if you would just go to the pen tool, and Jen is showing her super cute cursor, and we're just going to click on the highlighter. Just go ahead and click highlight. And we found that teal works really well. And notice if she starts just drawing on it, you can see that somebody else is on there. So just make sure that you are on a Jamboard frame that nobody else is on. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a moment, and Jen's putting the Jamboard link in for you. You're going to be taking a moment and you're doing two things. One, you're going to use that pen tool. You can go ahead and use the highlighter. Like we said, blue's probably easiest to see, but you could choose any color you'd like. And go ahead and circle how many chocolate donuts are there. And if you would use either a sticky note, either the Post-it or the text box, and type in how many are there and how did you figure out how many there are. So we're going to take a moment and let you.
And the reason we're doing
to the Jamboard
is just to let you know, if I was doing this with, and when I do it with K1 too, if you don't have access to Seesaw, and you're going to see the differences, but this interactive whiteboard for kinder, first and second, it might be hard for them to do a collaborative board. So I would definitely just take a screenshot and give them a Jamboard, like if you're using Google Classroom or pushing out. But if you're using Seesaw, Seesaw is definitely the way to go. But for adults and for you to start thinking about what Subitizing looks like, if you just want to grab one of these slide decks, I see the way people are thinking. It is nice to visually be able to see how people are grouping and changing. So are they seeing quadrants? Are they counting in twos with one left over? All of this is really great to see the way that we're thinking and the way that we're quickly suddenly being able to see a representative of an image to a number, and without having to like count on or count one on one. Oh, I love your thinking.
I know, look at some of these. They look fantastic.
Oh, I like, they saw the quad and then the singles. The twos and ones. Yep. Awesome.
Some great ideas. Oh, I love it.
So anyway, we also want to tell you that the one reason that we do this individually is to help students build their confidence. So if they start having a safe place to share their thinking, when they start partnering up or in small groups, they have had that process or that think time, so that when they have that like really quality discourse, they've already had a little bit of time to write down, to think, to show their thinking, so that when they meet with, like Natasha and I were talking, it's like, well, what I first did was see this.
Perfect. I love it. And I like that if we're taking a look at some of the examples, if you're still on that Jamboard, I love how frame 3 gives a good explanation. Frame 5 gives a good explanation. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that with us. This, this picture that Jen has in front of her, the one that she's showing. So if you still have your Jamboard open, if you want to go back to our Zoom so you can see, these were actually from students. So if you notice the one on the left, a student shared that they saw the 4 together and then the 3 ones, and they said, so 4 plus 3 equals 7. The second student said that they saw 2 in the second row with 2 in the third row and 3 in the fourth row. And then the ones and the 3, so 2 plus 2 plus 3 equals 7. And then lastly, the third example was they saw the 2 and the 5, and they knew that 2 and 5 equals 7. So the great thing about this, it's almost like a number talk. We're able to use our Subitizing along with our number talk, and we can see that there's no wrong answer. The great thing about this is it's easy for everybody to be able to access the math to start out. Jen just put in the link, in the chat, our presentation link. So you can go ahead and click on that. And it's been a long day, I know. So just take 30 seconds right now. Just breathe. You can open up the link. You can stand up if you need to. Stretch. Do some deep breathing. Get a drink of water. And go ahead and think of what you do in your own classroom, and maybe something that you've done already, and or something, how could you use this in your own class? Okay.
As we continue, the reason that we want to start with K2 is using dot talks, using quick images like the donuts. It starts a progression. So if students are seeing that and able to make some connections with being able to see without counting, to being able to groupitize. So Dr. Joe Bowler this last week, Lindsay's all, you have to know this, that what you're talking about tonight is actually subitizing and groupitizing. What the progression is then to look at maybe like a Legos and seeing how they're grouped in 4s. And even eventually being able to take the squares out of the middle of the last image, put those in, and then add those greater numbers. So kind of that numerosity as we're going through how we see that progression of numbers and how it translates into, in fact, Lindsay was just saying that some of the subitizing and groupitizing actually can have a greater impact even than your parent income. So building this number sense and flexibility with numbers conceptually and perceptually really do lead to a greater understanding of math. So when we talk about this, we're going to talk about why Seesaw. So Seesaw is every student, every time. So sometimes it's hard to walk around and hear every student having discourse or every student being able to share their thinking. So what we love about Seesaw is it has multimodal features built in. So students can choose text to share their thinking. If they have an iPad or even a touch screen or a Chromebook, we did all of this without touchscreen devices. You can see that they can use the pencil or the pen tool to explain their thinking. They can take a picture of their whiteboard. If they have a whiteboard table, a whiteboard, even a piece of paper and pencil, they can grab their thinking and then speak over it. They can do a screen recording using the microphone. They can add audio so you can listen to their thinking. And they can even add shapes and base 10 blocks that are already built into Seesaw. So for an example, I'm sharing with you, this was, I got my niece to help us out, and I didn't give her much directions. And it was funny because she kept looking at me like, am I doing it right? And I'm like, just share your thinking. I just want to know what you're thinking. So here's her thinking in her words.
I saw 3 and 3 and I knew that was 6. Then I saw 3 and 3 and I knew that was 6. And then I saw 2 and I know that's 2. And then I know 3 plus 3 equals 6. And I know 6 plus 6 equals 12. I know 12 plus 2 equals 14.
So what I love about this is part of the mathematical practices will have you to be able to listen and reflect on your work. So the funny thing about this is she didn't want me to show this one, but she didn't do the equal sign. And when she listened back, she's all, can I do it again? And she actually recorded it like 3 or 4 times on her own. And I'm like, finally, you have to be done. But thank you for sharing your thinking. But she kept hearing things. And as she was saying it, and as she was seeing what she was doing in her work. So this is why we just thought is one of our favorites. So we're going to spend some time and give you some choice here. So Natasha's going to share about our little choice board.
Yes. So as we look at our choice board, we have 4 different choices. And the very first one, if we're looking at our Seesaw student view, if you're choosing choice 1, the Seesaw student view, you're going to be joining our Seesaw class and you're going to get to play as a student. Jen's going to show you really quickly what that would look like. So if you choose that, we're going to be having you join as a student. We have directions for you, but we just want to make sure that you're choosing activities. Jen, did you want to speak to that anymore?
You can join with any Google or any email, and you can jump into the light bulb for activities, and you can click on and practice doing any of one of these and seeing the supports and the canvas that's built in. So I just wanted to let you know you want to click here on the activities to pick add response when you jump into the course.
So the second option that we have are the Seesaw activities, and these are from the teacher point of view. So if you're wanting to see these different teacher Seesaw activity links where you can see a plethora of different options, you can look at that. If you're wanting option 3, which is resources, you're wanting to just be able to explore some of these resources and build your own learning experience, you can do that. And then lastly, our 4th choice is the dot talks. And this is kind of similar to what Jen's niece Aslyn was doing, how she had the dots. If you're wanting to look more at specific examples of dot talks and subitizing, that will be our 4th choice. And if you're just not sure, that's okay. Go ahead and scroll down and you can see that if you click down, you'll see all of the options. So if this was choice 1, like Jen was showing, if you're going to join as a student view, these are directions on how you can do that. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see choice 2, the activities, and each of these are linked. We've got all the different number talks, the which one doesn't belong, also the visual patterns as well. And then choice 3 are those resources. So if you're wanting to build your own, we've got number talks, which one doesn't belong, visual patterns, and splat as well. And then lastly, the 4th choice were those dot talks, like we were discussing that example. So if you're wanting some of those dot talks and subitizing as well. So all of those choices, you get to take a few minutes to explore. We know it's not very much time, but at least you have all the resources to look through. So we're going to go ahead and take about how long, Jen? I think we're doing okay on time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, we're going to take about 5 minutes right now.
I'm really sorry for interrupting. I'm trying to find the link to your presentation, but I cannot find it anywhere in the chat.
Oh, no problem. Let me copy and paste it into the chat again for you.
Thank you, because I just joined it and I would like to see it. Thank you.
No problem. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you, Jen. Jen, did our music stop? Are we good on time, or do we want to continue?
Yeah.
Now this link is taking me to the spreadsheet with the classes, with the options for the sessions. It doesn't. it doesn't take me, yeah, I've been clicking, it doesn't take me to your slides or whatever you're using. It's taking me to the presentation, like to the list of the sessions.
Make sure you're clicking on the right one. I just tried it and it looks like it's working. We can see if Natalie's able to get that for you again, but it should be.
Yeah, I'll copy and
Oh,
paste
now
it
it
in.
is.
Just scroll down.
Finally.
Yeah,
Okay.
scroll down. Yeah,
Got
just
it.
scroll down. It might just
Thank
take
you,
a sec.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, ignore that last one. That was I was copying and pasting the code in earlier.
No problem. Thanks, Natalie. And Jen, do we want to go ahead and continue? It's up to you. I know we got a little.
Yeah, we can keep going and let them have a few more minutes. We have till 7:15.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and take about 2 more minutes.
My demons dictate over top of my headache. Go ahead and make mistakes. It's not up to you. It's impact. Car keeps crashing in my head as I sit awake instead, sleeping next to you. Maybe I didn't choose it. How could I? Oh, I need one more round. I was high, coming down on me.
Oh,
It's okay. Our music just started getting really loud, I think.
oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know what happened.
And I knew that
Okay, well, it's 7:11, so let's go ahead. And I know that was not enough time to look at all of those resources. I know that it's a lot. The good thing though is that you have all of these resources with you, which is fantastic. So let's go ahead and have our quick optimistic closure. So I want you thinking about how we started with these mathematical practices, and we were really grounding ourselves in the 8 mathematical practices that we have in student voice. And you'll notice also on our next slide that these are even linked, these kid-friendly mathematical practice posters. I noticed some people taking pictures of them. So just know that you have the links to those. You can use those with your own students, which is great. So as we're looking at these last mathematical practices, I really want you thinking of ways, what is just one example of how you could use one of these math practices with what we practice today or what we learned today with Subitizing with Seesaw. So if you would go ahead and for our very last activity, if you'd open up this Jamboard, and we'll put a link in the chat as well. Thank you, Jen. So this is our math, our Jamboard math practices for reflection. And if you open that up, you're going to see that we've got our 8 math practices, one on each frame. And if you would just, and notice how Jen is modeling this for us, if you would just grab a sticky note and go ahead and just make your sticky note, choose one mathematical practice, and you can give an example of how you could use it. With Subitizing with Seesaw, you can give an example of something that you're doing in your class, but just as our optimistic closure, just put one post-it, choose one mathematical practice. Thank you, thank you. And it looks like we've got lots of different ones resonating.
My demons dictate over top of my headache. Go ahead and make mistakes. It's not up to you. It's impact. Car keeps crashing in my head as I sit awake instead, sleeping next to you.
Okay, we're hitting that 7:14,
I
right?
love it.
I'm looking back on here. If you want to learn more about that, I recommend on the Dot Talks, there's like a 4-minute video of Joe Bowler doing a quick math talk that really helps you know that this is really easy to do. There's some slide decks there too that are just if you want to do them whole group to build that fluency and build that flexibility. If you're looking for some neuroscience and research, these are really good little bits of information that kind of help you support what you're doing for math instruction, as well as the resources that we provided for you. So we're really excited. Thank you for hanging into the last night, the session of like Jimmy Fallon. Have a very good night. And Natasha's all like, okay, bye.
Go ahead and follow us on Twitter. We would love to be able to collaborate with you. Feel free to stay and ask any questions. And we hope you enjoy all these resources. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I like the
Thank you, ladies. That was fantastic. And I've learned a new word, subitizing. Subitizing? Is that how you-
Subitizing.
Subitizing. I'm not a math teacher. So
I
don't forget to return to the main room. We do have raffle prizes, some good ones coming up. So lots of good stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much for moderating for us and recording for us.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I'm going to stop it right now.